Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, this is Attican. Welcome to a little addendum I'm going to add on to the most recently released little series of a little playthrough where we did all that mail and passenger movement up to from Atlanta to Great Falls, and it was a pretty good scenario. It was in free mode, America, 1830 to 1850. Anyway, I want to say, first of all, how much I appreciate all the comments that you guys make on the videos, particularly when you come up with an observation of either something I should have done or something that you do that helps or whatever. And because those are opportunities for all of us to improve our play. And I got a couple of comments I wanted to really call out, and they were worth actually creating this quick little video to point them out. One is, now we have talked about this functionality a number of times on videos, the flow of goods. So Protagonist Cast made the comment that I could have hit this cattle icon here. You know, remember when I was up in New York and I couldn't figure out how in the world New York was getting cattle, and oh boy, I'm going to butcher your name, Capucinissimo, I'm sorry, something like that, made the comment that, you know, there was a cattle ranch right next to New York. I just didn't see it. Well, Protagonist Cast pointed out I could have used flow of goods to see that and see how those cattle were getting into New York, and I just didn't think about it, and that would have been a great idea. And the other thing is, remember when I was doing all that searching, it made me think, remember when I was looking for the veggies? Well, a couple of times I did that. Well, this one obviously is easy to see because we've got the flow and we've got the lines going out where we're actually taking it by rail. And go back to the cattle one here. This one's actually moving by, we don't have a rail on that, do we? No. Moving by land. But back to the veggies. I could have used it to help me a little bit. It won't totally show you like in the case of vegetables where nobody's really using them, but it does help a little bit because it puts these markers up here for weekly production and amount stored at each of the farms. So it kind of makes them stick out a little bit. So it would have been easier for me to find those vegetables when I was doing the Great Vegetable Hunt 2 different times on this map. It would have been much easier to say, so like, for example, if I'm looking for milk, here you see how that pops up. That it just marks them a little bit, so it made it a little easier. So that helps some, but it definitely would have helped with the whole cattle thing up here in New York to help me find that. And then I wouldn't have had to build a line that ran like this. This was on a different video, by the way. This was on, I can't forget, the first America map we did, I believe it was. But I ended up running the line from here all the way up to New York, and I could have just run that little line right there and made just as much money, and it would have cost me a fraction of the amount. So that was cool. So thank you, Protagonist Cast. And then there was one that was so good that I just had to show you this one, and I was going to wait until I did another video that would use a pass-through warehouse. But Jerome Weston made a comment that he didn't think I needed my complicated system for setting up my warehouse. And here, let me just show you. Let me set up a pass-through warehouse, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'll just set up a pass-through warehouse to show you what we're talking about here. So we're going to make a pass-through warehouse, and say we're going to run it from let me expand this station. And we're going to run it from Chicago to Minneapolis, let's say. Doesn't really matter where we're running it, but that was one we almost did before we had a system crash running this particular episode. So let's go out of the middle, and let's go to the middle one here. And keep going with, whoops. And keep going with that down to Chicago. Like so. And run our line back up. and like so. And of course, we would have supply towers. My typical setup would be supply towers on either end, like so. And then we'd have our crossover, right? We would have our switches at each city so that we could use 2 stations and improve our flow through for these busy lines. So now okay, so we're almost there. We've almost got our setup. Okay, so now we have our pass-through warehouse and our city lines. Now, just imagine, I'm not going to go through all this, but just imagine that we had logs and fruit and corn and, wheat and veggies and corn, all that stuff coming into this warehouse. So I remember I was doing that left to left, left to right. Here, let me show you. You would set up a line, and I would go like Minneapolis, so city, warehouse, and then I would go pick the left track on this one, and the left track on this one, and then left, right, right, left, right, right. Remember that? Okay. So what Jerome suggested, which I thought was just beautiful, was take the left one on the first one, take the left one on the second one, left one on the first city, left one on the second city. So left to left, that's one. So that would be one line. We would add a locomotive, and off she would go. And then our second train would be simply city, warehouse, and then this one would be right to right, and boop, and add a locomotive, and we're done. That's all you have to do. So you set up those 2 trains. That's going to even your flow. You're going to get an even amount going into track 1 and track 2, or left track, right track, at each of these ends points. They're just going to pass through the warehouse, of course, as they go through. And that's all you had to remember is left to left, right to right. That's it. All done. And the other thing I love about this, just so much better than what I was doing, is that now I've got little groups of 2. So if I want to run a few more, I just go boop and boop, and now I've got 4. And if I said I wanted 6, but I don't need 8, I've got that option now. I don't have to go in groups of 4 the way I was doing it. So as long as you're doing it in groups of 4, you're going to keep your balance on your stations, and they're just going to flow beautifully. So this is just lovely. Now you can notice here too, I've got these set up as automatic lines. Typically you would want these, just for clarity, you'd want these to be freight only at some point. You can set them up automatic early, but you'd want them to be freight only. And we can see how well these things are flowing into these cities because we're using both platforms on both sides. There's very little waiting. And they're still stopping at the warehouse, but they're not actually getting anything. So this is not quite a totally valid test. But we've got 6 running. Let's say we wanted to run 8. We would just copy the first 2. And there they go. And now we've got this beautiful pass-through warehouse with these guys running through. And imagine, if you will, like I said, oops, ran out of time. But remember, but just imagine, like I said, if we had all those goods, all those raw materials coming into our warehouse, they'd be picking up, topping off with those, and that thing would be running like a champ. And all we had to do is go left to left and right to right. First train left to left, second train right to right. You're done. Then you copy them in groups of 2. So, Protagonist Cast, thank you so much for your comments. Capucinissimo, sorry, I know I butchered that one. Thank you. Jerome Weston, thank you. And all of you, thank you for the comments that you make. Keep them coming. That's how I get better. It's how we all get better at this game. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.